All right, cool. So this is a review for the upcoming sprint challenge. Just to try and help seed some concepts that might be fuzzy to people or yourselves. Open for questions. Nobody is manually muted, so if you're going to speak, please mute yourself. If you got a question, speak up. I'm more than happy to answer them along the way. But I'm going to cover every concept that you need to have success in the sprint challenge, and I'm going to build it with this app. I'm looking at the requirements for the sprint right now of what you're going to be required to do. As soon as I find this isn't the right one. Give me just a second. Let me find the right one. Here it is. Okay, so you guys are building it. It's kind of like a weird looking like plant list application where you got like a bunch of plants and it's got like a shopping cart and stuff. And it's got a contact form in it, or like an order form that you fill out that asks for your address and all kinds of stuff. And then when you click the submit button, the order form flashes a little message on the bottom that says, "Hey, congratulations, you ordered some stuff and did some things." And that's what you're building. But the requirements are going to be to you're going to have to make a you're going to have to use state in a class component to set the state of the application with a lifecycle method. The lifecycle method itself is already implemented. It's like just sitting there, but with a console log. After that, you're going to have to build the checkout form. Now, actually, not the whole form, but just the methods that involve the form. And then you're going to have to create a hook, a custom hook, like a use form hook, and tie that into your form. After that, then you have to test the form. You have to test all the inputs on the form, and it's pretty much one test. You got to fill out all the inputs. When you click the button, the success message shows up. You check to see if the success message is there, and that's the end. That's pretty much what's going to be required of you guys over the weekend. So we're going to do that live right now on this RecResIn test users. And if you don't know what RecResIn is, it's a pretty cool API, like a front-end testing website. It's a hosted API that gives you like a list of users. It allows you to do put requests, post requests, delete requests, just to try out your front-end application when you don't have a back end. So like if you don't, this comes in handy in build week. Let's say you're on a team that the back-end developer just isn't quite getting along fast enough or doesn't even exist. You can build a front-end React application with this website and do full CRUD with it if you want to. So it's kind of a neat little deal. So we'll get started. We're going to go with step 1, which is to get the data. So we're going to go into, you see an app here. I've just got a route with a path to user list. Let's take this back because that was from a previous one. And is we breaking? Yes, we're breaking. Why are we breaking? Cannot read property users undefined. That's in user list. Let's go take a look at the user list real quick. Let me fix the error. That's because that doesn't exist yet. So I'll comment that out for now. That way we just got something kind of going. All right, so the first thing we're going to do, we're going to get the data. And this is what you're going to see like over the weekend. You're going to see a class component with nothing but a component did mount, hitting an API call, and console logging the response. So that's what we're going to do now. And we'll just run that. And you can see I've got a response down here in the terminal. You guys have the way over here. And we can look response.data and .data. That's kind of odd. It's .data. And that gives us a list of users. That's what I want to display. You're going to see something similar to that over the weekend, and in any API for that matter. You always want to log the data out before you start trying to implement it in your code, because every API structures it a little differently. You never know what you're getting back or how much of it you're going to be getting back. So always look at it first before you do that. Now, our first task is we're going to get this on state on a class component. Does anybody remember how to set up state in a class component? That's the first thing we need. What do we need to connect this all together? Going once, going twice.
So import the use state first.
No, you cannot use useState here because it's a class component. Hooks are only valid in functional components. So useState would break this. You need to use a constructor. We're going to call a constructor. And in that constructor, we're going to call super. And super is what gives us access to all of the parent methods that are in component, in React component, such as this.setState. And this.state is where we're going to carry our state. It's going to be an object that's going to have some users. And right now, it's just going to be an empty array. So now if I uncomment this, it should not break anymore. We're just not going to get any users. It's just going to be there. And now that we have the state of our class component, we have a place to carry that state. We're going to set that state in our .them response of our API call to get those users. And how you do that with a React class component is through super, you can access a method called setState. So you go this.setState, and we're going to set that state to an object because it's already an object. So we're basically going to be kind of like replacing the state. I'm going to spread out this.state. And if this looks a little foreign to you, rather than just, say users equals, this is good practice. This is called shallow copying to keep object immutability. And it's a big concept when you get to Redux. So if you start practicing just using the spread operator and spreading and making shallow copies of objects as you manipulate them, you'll be better off for the next unit. I'm going to set users, or not next unit, but next sprint. I'm going to set users to response.data. Let's see, we got data. So response.data.data should give me my users. And there they are. Look at that. It's like magic, pure sorcery. So that's step one. You got to implement that through a lifecycle method and set the state of a class component. Now that we have that, let's see what our next step would be. All right, the checkout form. We're going to go to this contact form here. All right, this contact form, we got to create a route for this contact form. See this contact us button? Kind of routes us to contact form, but it's not showing anything. Yeah. We have to fix that. You're going to have to fix that in the sprint challenge too. So what you do is you need to create a route for it. Now, router and all that stuff should be there. So we're just going to add this contact form in here. And we're going to give a route a path equal to /contact-form. And now we got our contact form. So if we went to just wipe out this URL just to sanity check it and make sure that we're right. We got our users. We click contact us. We get our form. So we're going to go into the contact form now. And here we have two use state hooks. One's showing a message, setting show message. That is basically this little message at the bottom of the form. After you submit the form, this pops up and says, woohoo, gives you the values that you put in. Here's all of our inputs for our form. You can see they're tagged by label. They, if you notice, the label is wrapped around the input, and that's important when it comes to testing. So when you wrap, like you encapsulate an input with a label, you can get that input by its respective label text for testing. Now, if you had a label like closed above the input, you would have to use a way to tie it together, which is called HTML4 in the label tag, and you'd give it like almost like an ID name, like first name, and then you'd have to give the input an ID. So like if I was going to tie this label to this input and it wasn't set up this way, this would have HTML4 in it. I'd set that equal to like first name. And then in my input, I would have an ID. I'd say ID equals first name. That will tie those two together. So you can do it both ways, but definitely the simpler way is to just wrap it. Unless you have to break it apart for any kind of specific styling needs, I think wrapping the label is a much simpler, better way to go. But you can see we're displaying the values from that local state and we're displaying the on change. We got a handle submit function that sets show to true. Let's try it out. We're going to say first name, Ashley, last name, don't know. So sure. Address 123 The Way. The city is now here or nowhere, depending on how you want to say it. State would be, I don't know. What's a good state to put in there? Nevada. Nevada and zip code 13456. And if we click this checkout, boom, there's our success message. Woo, you contacted us. Some free swag may be shipped to Ashley Sure at 123 The Way, nowhere, Nevada. So that's how that works now. But what they want us to do is they want us to build a custom hook and put it in this form. So we're going to replace like all this state stuff with a custom hook that we're going to build. And they give you a hooks folder and a use form, empty file basically is what it is. So can anybody give me the definition of what a custom hook is? This is an awfully quiet crowd. I'm not very excited. Omaris, I see you in here, man. Why aren't you saying anything?
Okay. Okay, so custom hook. I mean, it's not going to be super like technical, but I would say a custom hook is basically condensed stateful logic. So you have a bunch of functions that are being returned from your custom hook, which cleans up a bunch of stateful logic that is otherwise kind of erroneous. So you, you create a custom hook, and it's supposed to be flexible in its use as well. So it should not have one use case.
That was perfect, actually. Good job. That's exactly what it is. It's a reusable function that controls stateful logic. That was awesome. That was exactly right. Perfect. See, and you thought you didn't know it technically. You nailed it, man.
Awesome.
So we're gonna import. We're gonna need a couple things to make this the hook work. So we know right away we got the key trigger for most hooks is it uses stateful logic. So most of these hooks need they're either going to need access to like use state, use reducer, use callback, or like Redux or like a state management system to make them really a functional hook. So we're just going to use state for now. We're going to get that from React. And we're going to start building this out. We're going to say const use form is going to equal a function that's going to do some things. Now, just thinking about this form right away, similar to what the use state is, and you could do this like whenever you're building, like especially like a use form hook, it's almost like copy paste, to be honest with you. But it's copy and paste the way you already have implemented if you already have something implemented. So if I go over to the contact form, I can see this is the state I want to replace, right? I can see it accepts an initial value. So obviously my custom hook should accept an initial value. So we're going to put an initial value in here. If I can type. All right, and then we know it handles stateful logic. So we're going to say const values, set values equals use state now to the initial values. Now take a look at line 6. All right, we just declared the state for our hook in here. Now I'm gonna go back to the contact form. Take a look at line 14. Like identical, right? So I even use the same name as values, set values, but that's pretty much what we're doing. The difference is we're going to add some methods inside this hook that are going to handle some logic. And then we're only just going to return those methods out rather than having all the definitions sitting there. So we know we need a handle changes method. So I'm going to say const handle changes. It's going to equal a function. It's going to take in the event because we know we're dealing with form inputs. And we are going to handle changes. We don't have to prevent default. We don't even really have to persist with a custom hook. So we're just going to say set values. And we're going to set values just to make this reusable. We're going to use that shallow copy methodology again. We're going to spread out the original values just so nothing's getting overridden. Then we're going to take whatever target name that we pass in, and we're going to set that same target's value. All right, so now we have a handle changes. We've got that. Let's go ahead and return these out and start messing with them. So we're going to return it as an array. First thing we're going to return out of here is values. So values is our end all values that we're going to want to see or submit or do whatever we want to do with. And then we're going to return handle changes. Now this is the part that can get a little bit confusing. You would think return set values. Set values is being controlled, encapsulated by this handle changes method. We don't want to expose that anymore. We have a method or a function, bear with me, declared within this hook that's going to handle that for us. So we're just going to return that function out of there. And that function is then in turn going to run its magic and control our stateful logic within the hook. So in theory, this should work if we just come over to the contact form and we import it in. We're going to get that from /hooks use form. And we come down to where use state is. We're going to change that to use form. And we're going to change where it says set values to handle changes. Now we're using our hook, but you can say, wait a minute, say it's mad, I already got, it's declared that I have handle changes. That's right, that's a copy. We don't need that anymore. So now we got handle changes tied into the form. That's why I named them that way, so I didn't have to go name every input. And values named values, so I didn't have to go name every input. You know, you kind of read ahead a little bit, see what things you can copy. This is going to break. Use form is not exported. Oh yeah, that would help, wouldn't it? There we go. Now it is. And now we can verify that it works. So if we see this going with no errors, we don't see any control errors from React, we check out, bam, use form hook's working. Now there's, you can elaborate on this use form hook too, like a lot of methodology with your forms involves like resetting the form after you submit, right? Like if you're adding multiple things, you can create a clear method in here. We can say const. Now this is extra. You wouldn't need this for the sprint, but we can add it in there anyway. We have a clear. And it's just going to be a function that the only thing it's going to do is going to say set values back to the initial value. And then we can pass that as our third argument in here. And we can go back to our contact form and we can grab it just in that order. And we can call this one, we call it reset. You can change the name of it, reset. So now if we want to reset that form, technically I can, you know what, I will put it, contact form. I'll put it below the contact form. I'm just going to throw a quick button in here just to show you that that works. And I'm going to say reset. And I'll put an on click on here. Set that equal to reset. All right, so now if I take this and I type some stuff in here, And click reset, clears the farm. There you go. We just made our hook even better. And you can put like logic in there to create errors. Error messages for you. You can have like a second argument. There's no rule that says a hook can only have one argument. You can have a second optional argument in here that's like the schema, for like validation. And then inside your hook, you can validate based on that schema, and then return like an errors object out of here, and have it watch that errors object for changes and see what changes pop up and display those errors. So you can really build this out to make it a functional piece. But for the terms of the sprint review, that's it for the custom hook. Is there any questions on that? Feel free, I'm open.
What about local storage?
What about it?
So basically we started like using local storage to store data. So I just can you go over those functions again that we started using local storage to store something. Like, for example, when we submit something and we use local storage for that, could you go over that?
Yeah, like if you wanted to use local storage to like maybe persist the form values.
Yes.
Yeah, you can do that. So local storage, you can put anything that's a primitive value in local storage. So it's not specific to hooks, like authentication tokens. You can put, I had a friend of mine when we were going through Lambda, we used to do this weird baseball app where you track the innings and the scores and stuff. Almost like a scorecard for baseball. And she persisted every bit of that to local storage because we were playing with local storage at the time, to where everything kept track and was saved in local storage whenever you went to the site. So if you refreshed your browser, it was back. But yeah, let's go into that hook real quick and let's do that. So we have handle changes. So we got this e.target.name, e.target.value. We probably need a use effect, I would say, to do it in this case. I'm just trying to think of a good way to do it real quick. And inside our use effect, we'll have a callback, and this is going to watch for state changes. So I'm going to make a dependency array that's going to watch values. And when it sees values, I'm going to say local storage dot set item. We're going to set item, we'll call it form. And we're going to set that to JSON.stringify. And the reason why I'm stringifying this, if you want to know, local storage only accepts primitive values. If we're going to want to persist our form data in the local storage, we got to stringify it in like one giant string. So we're going to stringify values. And let's see if that works. So we can go into application. And you can see it already persisted. Do you see that down there, Mars? On the initialization of the hook, it stringified that whole object in local storage and set it to empty strings. So now I can type in my name. Let's say Chris. And if you look, it's persisting and it's keeping it. And since we're calling local storage that set item form, let's see, how would I reset that on refresh? Because if I refresh, I think the form's going to be empty, and it's going to reset that. All right, so we would have to find a way to check that. So we can say initial value or local storage. Actually, we're gonna do this. We're gonna put a callback in here. Make me work for this one, Amar. You know
I really didn't mean to.
that? That's all right. It's just JavaScript, man. That's all it is. We're gonna say if local storage dot get item form. Actually, you know what? Let's do this first. Const form values equals JSON dot parse local storage dot get item form. So we got that in form values, and then we're going to say if form values form values is always going to exist. So I need to check to see if any of the fields are filled in. So I'm just going to check form values dot first name. I could probably write a switch case and get a little bit more creative with this, but we're just going to say if that is, then we're going to return form values. Else, we're going to return the initial value. See if that blows up. So we'll take and erase this stuff. We'll refresh. It should go to initial values. Now I'm going to put in my name, refresh, and it's keeping my name now. You see that? So technically, you'd have to do it for each one, because if this doesn't exist, and I refresh, it goes away. But I just verified it on that value. And here you can get real creative. You could say if for object.keys, if if object, like form value key is there, then return the form values. Else, do nothing and break. So there's more. You can get real elaborate with these and build them out as strong as you want to. So did that help you at all, Amaris? Did you find any use of that?
Yeah, I think so. Thank you.
No problem. All right. So we'll keep that there because that's still functioning. Why not? Let's see, what else do we have? All right. So once we got the checkout form working and we're using our custom hook, so that's done. So like when we click checkout, we get our little fancy message down here. We're going to let's see, refresh that. Oh, it's going to keep all the stuff in, and we comment that. What did I miss? I broke something. Oh, I see what I did. We're just going to go back to the way it was. Wipe this back out. There we go. I'm broken. Clear that. Make sure everything still works. Check out. Woohoo. Yep. Refresh. Gone. All right. Cool. Last thing we have to do now is test said form. So we're going to go to the test page. And here you're going to get something real similar to this. You're going to say form header renders, and then you're going to form shows success message on submit. So we're going to start with form renders. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to say render. We're going to render our contact form. Now keep in mind, some of this stuff might not be imported for you. You're probably going to have to import it yourself. Like I believe specifically user event and screen are not in there when you initially pull down the project. Keep those in mind. That you got to get the user event screen and the component that you're testing. So we can go ahead and kill this server now and run npmt, which is shorthand for test, and it's going to run a test. We're going to see if they pass. They pass. Well, they're passing because one's just rendering something and one's not doing anything. So there's nothing to break. It passes. But I want to show you a cool tool. So you're ever wondering, like, okay, I got to go to the contact form. Like if I was a student looking at this initially, I'd say, I'm rendering the contact form. Let me go to the contact form, check the header. All right, here's the header for the contact form. That's what I got to grab. I can check it by text. Rather than doing all of that, if you go screen.debug, it's actually going to print the DOM right here in the terminal the way the test sees it. So it's exactly what the test is looking at. So here you can see our values are all empty, as well they should be. We just did the initial render, and you can see our H1 of the contact form right there. So whenever you're looking to grab things to run an assertion on, this is a good way to do it. So we could say, we'll go const, call it the header equals screen.get by text and we're going to get by text the contact form. Or let's say get contact. That should get us back one thing. Shouldn't break yet. All right. And then to verify that, we can say expect header to have text content contact form. And that should fly. And it passes. And now we'll do a sanity check. Contact 4. This might pass because it's shorter. Yeah, it does. So form. And it breaks. So that's a valid test for just testing the header. You can get more elaborate with this with data test IDs, things like that, to see if it's in the document, check the text value. You can get images by alt text, and you can start checking different things in there as well. Next thing we're going to move on to, keeping the screen debug in play. This first test is done. So we finished that one. Now we got our second. This is the one where we got to make that success message show up so we can check to see if it's there. So to do that, we got to type in all the inputs. So first thing we'll do is we'll render it. Render our contact form. And we can go ahead and just go ahead and screen debug right in here. When I found screen debug, I was like, that's the greatest testing tool ever. I don't even have to look at the browser. I can just write this all in my code. All right, so you can see we have an initial one that's, nothing's happening there. And if you remember what I said about getting by label being wrapped to get that input, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to go const, and we're going to get the first name. Set that equal to, and because you type this a lot, I like to destructure this. So I'm going to grab the screen object, not screen, but the debug, not debug, get by label text. I get that from screen. Just like that. And the reason why I'm doing that is I didn't mean to make that equal to that. Now I can just say get by label text instead of typing screen like 50 times. I say get by label text. Oh, and we want the first name. So first name. That should grab it. All right, it didn't error, so more than likely we got it. Now we can call user event dot type, and we're going to type in there stand. And we can check our debugger. I'm keeping the debugger below. Oh, I didn't give it the user event dot type. It's first name. I think this is right. I'm trying to remember how to use user event now. I think this works. Yeah, and I can verify that now because they're standing my values for my debugger. So I know it's working. And now I can expect it. So I can even write a test here. I can say expect first name to have value of stand. And this will verify the input works. Any questions at this point? Shoot, fire away, Ashley. What you got?
Sorry, off topic because I was multitasking as I was paying attention to you. The test for the project we just did, it's about this too that we're doing right now.
Yep.
For the user events, it says I pick the one user event dot type, and then you have the first name input, and then you have Tony.
Uh-huh.
It says that it's only supposed to have a string.
For
yeah.
For here?
Yeah.
All right. Now
That's what the question says. It says my answer is wrong, and I did the answer like
how'd you import it?
It's the stupid after project question thingy.
Oh, that's wrong. But it takes a string. Type only takes a string as its value here, but it takes two.
Yeah, it says which type of the following would allow you to mimic a user typing into a text input. I did user event dot type dot the input comma the string, and it says it's wrong and that it should be user event dot type and just a string.
Well, maybe just verify that doesn't work.
I wanted to make sure I answered it correctly.
Yeah, correct. You did answer it correctly. I'll
Sorry,
put it
on topic.
No, that's all right. I'll put it in for a Canvas fix. Even though I put those in all the time and they have yet to fix one. I mean, it's just terrible. Because I think I remember having that one pop up before. And there was one in the next unit too about Redux that was completely wrong.
Okay, because I'm like, I just want to make sure I'm understanding the testing correctly.
Oh, you are.
Thank you.
No problem. All right. You were right. They were wrong. Just chalk that one up as a win.
So the testing was poorly executed?
Probably.
that was a joke on a testing joke.
I know. I truthfully, I don't think Canvas probably, I don't even think they have integration tests for what they put in, which is a bad thing, but I think it changes so much with the projects changing that it's just redundant. All right, let's move on. Let's finish typing these in. We're going to say const last name. And it's going to be a redundant thing. So you can see why I destructured that out of the screen. We're going to get by text. We're going to get last name. And we're going to expect last name. Oh, we can't expect yet. We got to type into it first. Where you guys at? You're supposed to catch me on this stuff. User event dot type last name, and we're gonna go Stan Ashley, just because I don't see anybody's real last name most of the time. So Stan Ashley is gonna be the name of this one. Expect last name dot to value of, now it should fly. And now in our debugger, we're going to see the value of last name changed and first name stayed. So we can see we're actually typing into our text fields, like off in the ether somewhere where this thing is spooled up in the node modules without it ever showing up on the screen. And that's the beauty of these unit tests. This is why this is the most sought after skill for junior to mid-level developers. They do branch protection on GitHub based on these tests. There's command line runners that run these tests, everything that goes through. None of those can integrate Cypress, because Cypress is a user interface only end-to-end test. So for branch protection and everything else, when you write a component on the job, you write tests for that component, not because you think your code is broken, but for the next developer on your team that's got to come in and refactor something you did because a feature change doesn't break everything that you did. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Cool. All right, let's keep going. I might do a little copy pasta on this one. I got some of this written out already. And just to save a little time, there's our address one. Let's write the expect on that. Expect address. Here, add value. 1, 2, 3. The way. All right, that one should fly. And I like to do my tests this way. I even do them during the day when I'm doing the day job thing, with the debugger constantly running below it, just so I can verify and check things as I'm doing it. Next one's city. Let's grab city. Now you see where I got the nowhere from. We can even copy this guy here. Down here. Just got to change this to city. And change this. Okay. Now once you go, getting down to the end. So we got state and zip left. Let's knock them two out real quick. So we got everything there. And we'll just keep typing. State equals. I didn't want to use the screen output there. Back that out. Equals get by label text. And we're gonna get label text of city. User event. Type. We're gonna type in the city. And we're gonna type Reno. Expect city. Value. Reno. Although I just named it state, not city. Just fail. There we go. And we're still failing to have value of Reno. That's because I grabbed it by city. There we go. One more. Zip code. We get zip right now. User event. Type in the zip. I'll type 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll expect zip. Grab value. 3, 4, 5, 6. And if this passes, we have filled in all of our inputs according to the debugger. Everything's got a value, so they're there. Now the next move is to click the checkout button. So we got to go get this button checkout. So we're gonna come down here. We're gonna say const button. And to grab a button, especially in a form, the easiest way to do that, if it doesn't have like a data test ID, anything, is to get it by the role. So we're gonna go, I didn't destructure that out. So we're gonna screen dot get by role. And the role is gonna be button. That should fly. No errors, no whammies, cool. And then we'll say user event dot click. We're gonna click the button. And we're gonna see what our debugger shows us now. Look, our message showed up. Woohoo, it's all down there. It wasn't there before. Now we can run the assertion that that exists. So we could do that right here. We can say const success equals screen dot get by. Let's do a get by text. And the text we're looking for is, we'll look for some free swag. Let's see if that pops up. So it's passing. Now all we gotta do is expect success to be in the document. If it's there, we know our form's successful. Bam, there's all the testing. That was the first sprint of 3.1 in a nutshell. Any questions?
Hi, this is Darlene. I do have a question for you. In order to study this a little bit more, I know there's like freebootcamp.com and things like that, but that focuses more on, you know, like what we need to know is fundamentally for other things outside of testing. Where do you suggest that we go to get some extra practice on testing?
The best resource I know of isn't very cheap, but it's amazing. It's worth its weight in gold. And that is the Kent Dodds Testing JavaScript course.
Kent Dodds?
Kent, Kentdodds. And who Kent Dodds is he's the guy that created and maintains React Testing Library. He's the source. And he does a lot of like educational things. He's got, if you follow him on Twitter, he's popping up with different stuff all the time. But that testing JavaScript course is amazing. Okay. That's where I learned all of my testing, but I did have to pay $350 for it. That's the downfall.
Yeah, no, and I'd be willing to do that. I just want to make sure that I completely understand it. So.
Oh yeah, he takes a deep dive into testing React, testing JavaScript outside of React, testing with TypeScript, building command line automated test runners. He even goes into Node API backend testing, all of that with the mass majority of Jest, because that's what they use is Jest. So we use Jest for everything. How to create scripts for add and commit, to where when you go to commit a a push, to where it actually runs locally all of your tests before it allows you to do so. You can program that in. It's pretty neat.
Oh, well, thank you for that information. And I'm going to look into that. And I have one other question. Where do we, is there a repository, or can we copy the sprint review to go over, print it out and go over it that you're doing right now? Or will there be a branch that we can look at?
They specifically asked me not to, because this is very close to the sprint challenge, to be honest with you, as far as what's expected. So what I do is I actually record it. I post the recording in the channel, if that helps you at all. So it would be a recorded video that you can slow down, speed up, do whatever you want to with. And it's just an extra resource to guide you through the sprint. So if your projects aren't giving you the answer, you want to go to maybe like a lecture and it's not giving you the answer, or you can revert to this video as well to try and find the answer you're looking for.
Well, I really appreciate you, and thank you very much for doing that.
No problem. Happy to do it. Any other questions? Testing, custom hooks, class components? It's really quiet. All right. A couple of success tips for the sprint is keep in mind you cannot use hooks in a class component. Just like you can't use this dot state in a functional component. Lifecycle methods are specific to class components. If it's a functional component, you'll use effect. Class component, you're looking at component did mount, component did update. They like to mix and match them on you from this point forward. So through the projects of 3.2 and 3.3, you'll be stumbling across random class components built into the projects and the sprint challenges. So be prepared, make sure you got an understanding of those. Custom hooks, this is it for the custom hooks. So after you get through this sprint, you don't have to worry about it other than building them on your own. And testing will come back, and then we'll come back often. So learn to love testing. And with that, any closing arguments before we end it?
Not here. Thank you for your time.
No problem. Happy to do it. That's why I'm here. All right, everybody. Well,
Thank you.
you are very welcome. Happy to do it. I am going to